Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. Welcome back to the International Cannabis Business Conference. And who should happen upon our desk here but our own Hemp Day, Hump Day correspondent, Doug Fine. How you doing, Doug?
Hey, Russ. I could not be better. It's beautiful weather here in San Francisco. And as we were talking about off air, it's not anything that your fans will. This is not going to surprise them, but it's just a pleasure whenever we get to talk because it's always such a high-level conversation. You're such a skilled journalist, and your listeners ask such good questions. So it's something I'm so glad to be part of.
Yeah, big shout out to the listeners out there who follow us on the live show, 3 p.m. weekdays on 420radio.org. They do get some really good chat questions in there. And the latest thing that's happening, earlier yesterday, I got to meet Edgar Winters, our hemp farmer in Oregon, who's been licensed, but he's got no seed. So let's talk a little bit about getting seed to the hemp farmers.
This is really, Russ, a bigger picture story of one of the most exciting times for me ever as far as a journalist, which is saying a lot. I mean, I've reported from Rwanda and the world's last mountain gorillas, and met and visited Aung San Suu Kyi, the Burmese democracy dissident, when she was under house arrest. I've had a fun career so far, and this is by the day developing, exciting. Like just sticking now. I've got so much to talk about, but just sticking to hemp in Oregon. I'm trying to help the state of Oregon get the hemp seed imported in a way that federal authorities are going to smile based on our Section 7606 of the Federal Farm Bill of 2014 that allows hemp cultivation for research purposes, including sales and marketing research, at least as some states are interpreting it. So, is it going to work? Is it going to happen? Oh, I don't know. It's really exciting. Yeah. A second issue that's developing is the issue of cannabis for different purposes growing in the same place. So in other words, cannabis with low THC versus cannabis that has THC in the mix, psychoactive versus hemp, and I don't even like using the word versus. Right now there's a fast motion education process going on in places that do have traditional psychoactive cannabis cultivation so that they feel comfortable and relaxed about the introduction of industrial hemp. And it's really fun to watch because not only are livelihoods at stake, but it's showing that we who have made the argument that bringing this plant above ground is going to be a positive step for humanity and for the way that we interact on a larger scale far beyond the plant. And for many people that involves lessons learned from the plant in various ways, right? We must be able to communicate in a civilized way with one another and understand that there's no problems, only solutions, as John Lennon said. Emotions can run high, but this is all resolvable, really. And here's my personal message for folks who might be living in that demographic. Too High to Fail is, and I'm sorry I'm rambling so long.
No, go.
Too High to Fail is about the culture of the Emerald Triangle, lovingly referred to as the redneck hippie of Mendocino County in particular, is a real culture that needs to brand itself in terms of post-prohibition survival as the way Parmesan cheese must come from that region and champagne must come from that region.
There you go.
And Southern Oregon is part of that Emerald Triangle. It's the northern part. Southern Oregon is the northern part of it, and Mendocino is the southern part of it. And so it's the same culture. And so I want the psychoactive cannabis farmers that grow outdoors under God's sun and all the way that I advocate and recommend and talk about all the world to understand. These are my peeps. I care a lot about them, and they've provided important medicine over the years. And so I wouldn't do anything that I thought was a threat. And I'm involved with Edgar Winters' hemp farm, and there's no guarantees in this life, but we have the science and the good intent and the communication skills that we hope allay people's fears. And I hope we're talking in a year from now and I'm saying, see, it was no problem, versus, oh, I'm so sorry, forgive me. But really, it's all about communication, and I think we can make it work.
Yeah, just to catch some listeners up, if you don't know what the controversy is we're talking about, the real basics here is that you have psychoactive cannabis and you have industrial cannabis, and the fear is that one is going to cross-pollinate the other and either make bad hemp or lousy pot. And the people I've interviewed on this who have studied this kind of stuff tend to say that there's a 3-mile zone. If you can get the farms 3 miles apart from each other, that's really not anything we should worry about. Is that some of the education that you're trying to get across to people?
Yeah, that's one part of it, and that's of course on open ground and flat fields in Belgium. When you're talking about hilly country, it can be much less than that and safe. There's also a relatively small window of when pollen is happening from the hemp plant of roughly 72 hours. This is all relatively new knowledge for me that I'm in the process of. I'm a student every day. That's fantastic as a journalist, right? But I've seen studies, 1997 study out of Hungary on this kind of stuff. So 5 miles is the longest I've heard. It's a European study talking about 7 kilometers. So I'm saying 5 miles. But they also, psychoactive and industrial, tend to pollinate at different times. It's a different growing length of growing season. So it's really, again, it's about communication. But I don't, so in the end, I don't think this is something that we're going to be worrying about it and talking about in the long term. But I'm glad it's truly an educational opportunity. It's a moment to embrace. Here's another thing. The long-term philosophy of this, beyond today's petty and nonsensical nuances around points of a percent of THC and things like that, is that not only did, in my view, I'll say the word God, whatever your view is, nature, whatever gave us the plant, and it's been useful, and humans have used it for so long that, of course, we've bred it. It's just Darwin. We've just bred it to things that we want it to do, and there's absolutely no reason that a single strain/cultivar of this plant that defies a definition of cannabis versus hemp. It might have incredible seed producing, if you want to render it for oil. It might have strong fiber, and it might have 8 or 9% THC. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? There are cultivars that might be good for everything, and we can just stop arguing about it. But yeah, farmers are going to always have to be careful that their plants don't pollinate your neighbor's plants. That's called good neighboring and good farming.
And I would think, this phenomenon must exist for other crops.
Exactly.
So we don't have to reinvent the wheel on this, do we?
It's exactly right, but it's also part of the bigger discussion here about on the message of cannabis, too high to fail. It seems like the Southern Emerald Triangle, maybe I'm just generalizing here, might have come to terms with this to a degree a little bit more than Southern Oregon has, which is legalization is here. Federal legalization is coming. It is the morally right thing. Legalization of this important plant and herb is as important as ending segregation was in the South in the 50s and 60s. Like, you have to do the right thing. And I'm talking to people here at this conference or in San Francisco who are coming up to me saying, "But God, I'm a farmer, really." A guy he was upset. It's like, this legalization thing, how do we stop it? It's in my living. And I'm like, dude, if you're part of the Northern California thing, be part of the branding effort. Join the Emerald Growers Association, because it's going to be a vintage high-end thing. The Marlboro equivalent is going to be there in the corner store. You have to be the fine wine in the fine shop. And it's easy for me to say. I relate to someone. He said, "I've got a 1-year-old." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it matters. But to the extent that part of the what we're calling people having a little bit of initial concern, I think it's going to all go away, about hemp coming into psychoactive growing country in the hills in the south of Oregon, is people that are afraid about legalization in general. It's not so much that they're afraid of hemp. They haven't yet wrapped their minds around the fact that it's becoming a legal industry, and you can either try and keep being a moonshiner, or you can try and become a microbrew. But it's coming, and it's time.
That's a really good way to put it. It's time to transition from being a moonshiner to a microbrewer. That's a great way to put it, because there's been a false profit that's been built upon prohibition. That it increases the price of the product beyond what any farmer would get for any crop, and there is going to have to be this adjustment period. The other adjustment I see happening with respect to hemp is, it's all well and good that we plant a whole bunch of acres of hemp, but it's got to be processed. There's got to be those intermediate industries, the decortication facilities, and so on. How is that developing in Oregon and other states?
Well, I'll tell you what it's something I think about every day, and so I'll tell you what my dream situation would be, and I'm dead serious about this. I should say I'm gigglingly serious about this, but so the main concept in Hempbound is this concept of tri-cropping, of putting processing facilities in communities so that they can have ownership of the value-added process. Hemp's profitable on the ground, as we've discussed on past Hemp Day Hump Days, but once you're doing value-added, you're adding 100 times or 1,000 times to that value and developing real education in the community, real economy in the community, and keeping the, people care. The law of the commons is returned. People care about their communities and their soil and stuff, because that's where the economy is coming from. So that's the goal, right? So for Oregon, what I want to be is the hemp czar. I basically want, and the problem is, unlike the psychoactive legalization, which has come under the tutelage of the Liquor Control Board, and they have funding because people pay liquor taxes. The hemp side is Department of Agriculture, which doesn't have any money. Yeah. So I don't know where the pot of money would come from for a salary, but and the main part of it is a lot of travel, is getting the seed, and I'm already doing this, but I'm not being paid. Get the seeds to the farmers in the program. Then the next thing is bring in as much knowledge as you can, and I have it from around the world and people that I know, and some knowledge I've gained myself, but from lots of people, to help farmers. Everything, like there's a science to how you're planting, and that's mistakes that were made in other states early on that we can avoid here and have a great first season. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But during the season, as that's going on, I want to be working hard to be getting the harvesting equipment in to the communities, and that's going to be involving importing from overseas in a lot of cases when you're talking about fiber and biomass gasification for the energy. Those are the three legs of the hemp-bound tri-cropping: is seed and flower on one hand, fiber and herd in the middle, and energy on the other side. It's the three legs of tri-cropping. So I want to get these facilities in, and I don't know what the grant funding sources are out there or miracles, but it's a couple $1 million to get some harvesting facilities in for the entire Oregon harvest from year one, and that's something that I really want to be part of, and as hemp czar, and I've always aspired to be a hereditary monarch. So.
Well, and if you've got to be a hereditary monarch, why not choose Russian, right? They do it they got a certain panache, right? We're sitting here with Doug Fine at the International Cannabis Business Conference. You can find more about Doug at dougfine.com. He's at Organic Cowboy on Twitter. The books are Too High to Fail, Hempbound, and other books that don't have anything to do with marijuana.
Also, just announced yesterday the pre-order for a new project, the hemp-printed first legal harvest at dougfine.com. You'll see the link right at the top. It's a pre-order now because we're putting in hemp from last year's U.S. hemp harvest into the mix, and you can have a piece of history.
That's awesome. Doug, thank you again for everything you're doing for us and joining us on Hemp Day Hump Day and being here at the conference and sticking up for hemp. Love it.
Great to be with you, Russ. Thanks for all you do.
All right. Peace out.